Hi, I am Angel Ribo with Mindalia TV, and we are here today with Brent N Hunter. Hi, Brent. How are you?
Yeah, it's good, Angel. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. I'm thrilled to have you here. Thank you.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you. So, to start the conversation, what's that particular thing that keeps you so much passionate?
A lot of things in my life give me a lot of passion. However, the Rainbow Bridge is one of my deepest passions. This is a book that I wrote which illuminates the common ground in the world's major wisdom traditions. And so this is a body of knowledge that I think is particularly important for the times that we're living in. And I take the opportunity to speak about the Rainbow Bridge whenever I can.
Oh, excellent. Could you tell me specific examples of how the Rainbow Bridge actually illuminates the world?
Well, basically, the Rainbow Bridge illuminates the common ground in the world's major wisdom tradition. So some examples of that would be principles, I call them universal principles, that apply to anyone regardless of what religious belief system, spiritual belief system, or even if somebody's an atheist, actually. So these are things like having love and compassion and wisdom, but also some of the more mental aspects, like the power of our mind and the power of concentration, the power of intention. Those are some things that are also common amongst all the major religious traditions and wisdom traditions. So those are some examples of universal principles. There's 60 universal principles.
60, 60?
60.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a wealth of book.
Well, I tried to have it be as few principles actually as possible, and yet represent the true common ground in all the major wisdom traditions. So,
I was particularly impressed by one of the endorsements you got for the book. Could you share that with our audience?
Oh, this is His Holiness the Dalai Lama has endorsed the Rainbow Bridge, as well as doctors and lawyers and ambassadors, astronauts, Olympians, an Academy Award-winning actor as well. So I'm very humbled that so many people have found resonance within the Rainbow Bridge book. And if I could, I just want to say, basically, there's a couple different parts of the book.
Okay.
The first part talks about these universal principles, the common ground. And the second part of the book talks about how we can use these universal principles to create a bridge to inner peace within ourselves, within our own heart and mind and soul. First and foremost, that's really what's most important. The second part of the book talks about how do we use these universal principles to help create a bridge to a better world and to help make systemic changes to our society at the global level to literally create this bridge to the future and a bridge to peace, ultimately.
What's the reason why you wrote the book? Are you like a very deeply spiritual person that you came up with the idea of the book? How did it work?
It's a great question, Angel. My upbringing, come from a multicultural, multireligious family. My mother was born and raised in Turkey, and so she's 100% Muslim, so I'm half Muslim. And my father was Jewish, and they raised us as Christians. So, and also my father was deeply interested in Buddhism, Zen Buddhism in particular, and meditation. So I learned how to do transcendental meditation. It was one of the gifts from my father when I was 12 years old. So I've been meditating for some time. And I just feel like I've spent most of my adult life trying to figure out what is religion all about? What's it all about? And how can we use it to help create not only this sense of inner peace and harmony within ourselves, but like I said, to help create a better world. So it's that multicultural, multi-religious background that actually kind of forced me into understanding what all the major traditions teach and what that common ground is.
We are really, I would say, bombarded by many different religions and avenues related to religion. How would you suggest someone that has different options, that lives in a multicultural, multi-diverse, multi-religion environment, how would you suggest someone to pick one of them?
Oh, to pick one particular, well, whatever resonates with that person. So, and some people don't resonate with any kind of religious or spiritual system, but whatever resonates within that person, and it's kind of like it's like food. Some people like Chinese food. If you like Chinese food, you should eat more Chinese food. If you don't like it, it's not helpful to spend time talking about how bad it is. Just find out what other kind of food you like to have. If you like Mexican food or Thai food or whatever, then have that. It's the same thing about religions and spiritual systems. Whatever resonates within a person, I would encourage them to explore that.
When someone starts reading your book, what would you say is the main experience that they would get from the first chapters?
Well, I hope that people will understand that we are all much more common than we are different. And that if we spend our time and energy focusing on what makes us different, then we're going to see just how different we are. And if we spend our time focusing on what's common, then we're going to be blown away by recognizing actually all the many, many different things that binds us together. And again, at this time in history, I think the whole concept of unity and coming together and focusing on common ground, intentionally focusing our mind and energy on the common ground is enormously beneficial.
Within your family, having all those three different avenues, how would you live on a daily basis, those three different faiths?
Well, this is a great question, and one of the reasons why I wrote the Rainbow Bridge was it kind of gives a new terminology to what's common. So, for example, if we use a Christian tradition, we may have a particular story or a particular parable. In Buddhism, we may have a different story, and in Islam and all the different wonderful major world traditions, everything is looked at in a slightly different way. But when we use universal principles, now we have a common language to understand what is the same concept essentially, but just described from different perspectives. When you use the universal principles, it's that common ground in common language.
And how easy or how difficult is it to find those commonalities inside the same family, living in the family that you lived in?
Well, it's one of these things where if you're forced to be like half Christian, half Jewish, and yet raised half Muslim, half Jewish, and raised as a Christian, you have to hold all those things in your mind together, and without judgment, that's how you actually understand how those things can coexist. And so a lot of meditation, of course, is also very, very helpful when we're able to calm our mind, and we can calm our entire sense of being as well.
Did you have conflicts?
Yes, it takes many years to try to resolve some of those conflicts. So, for example, in Christianity, if you don't believe in Jesus, some people would interpret that you're not a good Christian, for example. Or in Islam, if you're not a true believer, then you are going to go to hell, or whatever the different languages are. Those are things that exist at the same time, and I know within myself those are not true. And so it's about a continuum. There's a continuum of beliefs within each tradition, and the universal principles gives us a way of focusing on what's common. And within myself, for example, when I use the universal principles, the 60 different universal principles, depending on what's going on in my life, some of those principles will be more prominent, and some of them will be less prominent based on what's happening in that moment in time. And so it's kind of like putting together pieces of a puzzle. This is actually another book that I wrote called The Pieces of Our Puzzle, but it's I think a helpful metaphor is to understand ourselves as having many different pieces of our own internal puzzle. And then, of course, we can do the same thing with the world at large.
I find really fascinating, this environment that you lived in when you were a kid that allow you to have all this experience and then reach out to all this knowledge and wisdom that you put into your book. What are you doing today after writing that book? What's the next step for someone like you, Brent, that feels that this is so important for humanity?
Well, one of the next steps is focusing on the 14-point roadmap to world peace, because I believe that if we focus on that, especially with large numbers of people coming together to focus on very specific actions that we can take to help reprogram the global operating system, then the sky is the limit. So there's many different aspects about using these universal principles to help leverage, again, in our own lives, to help make ourselves more peaceful within ourselves and have a greater sense of tranquility, as well as in the world at large.
What is your next project after writing this?
Oh, yes,
what's the next thing in your life?
The next thing, well, one of the books that I wrote after The Rainbow Bridge is a book called The Power of KM, Harnessing the Extraordinary Value of Knowledge Management. And knowledge management is a professional discipline that's typically applied in the world of business, which deals with knowledge and it deals with wisdom. So this is very profound to be able to have a professional discipline in going into the world of business and being able to talk about knowledge and wisdom. So that was a book that I published back in 2016, and I'm pursuing avenues of in actually applying these principles where I'm actually working today. So part of it is rallying people, doing whatever I can to get the word out about universal principles and the 14-point roadmap to world peace, and then the use of knowledge management in the world of business, which of course can also be applied not just in the world of business but to any organization. So nonprofit organizations, in the government, for example, any kind of organization that has people.
And could you actually put those two worlds of wisdom of those two different books together to work, maybe this knowledge management expertise of yours to work for these 14 different principles for world peace? Would that make sense?
It certainly does make sense. And the way I think I can best describe this is in knowledge management, there's something called the wisdom pyramid or the knowledge pyramid. And it's a pyramid and it has 4 levels. At the bottom level is data. One level above that is information, which is data in context. And then something above information is knowledge, which is understanding gained through experience. And then at the top of the pyramid is wisdom, which is the art of knowing. So the wisdom aspect contained in the Power of KM is actually the universal principles in the universal wisdom that I talk about in the Rainbow Bridge. And that's how those two subjects tie together so powerfully.
Excellent. I would like to finish our conversation today, and I would like you to speak and talk to our Mindalia TV audience and just give them a piece of advice. What would that piece of advice be, please?
Well, I think the most important thing is to recognize that we're all much more common than we are different. And with all the different things that are going on in the world today, I think that concepts of peace and tranquility and treating people with respect and dignity and honor, I think we all know those are the right things to do. And when we focus on that and search deep within ourselves, I think we'll recognize that the vast majority of people, not only in this country at this particular point in time, but also all around the world, people agree with that. And it's all about treating people with respect and dignity. And of course, the golden rule or the platinum rule is do not do unto others as you would not want done to yourself. And if we can abide by that, the world will be a better place. So those are some words of wisdom that I'd like to impart.
Excellent. I have to say this has really been a very enlightening interview. Thank you very much, Brent.
Thank you very much, Angel.
Thank you.
It's great to be here.
Thank you, absolutely. So this is again Angel Ribo with Mindalia TV. Thank you very much for being here with us today.